Hey everybody, happy Friday. How are you? We are just going to hop over here. So once I turn to start working, I can't see my computer screen to be able to see any comments or questions. So hop over here, bring this up on my phone. Hop over here. Turn the volume down. There we go. All right. I think we're set. So happy Friday. Excited to be back with you all, like truly live this Friday. I feel like it's been a minute since I've been truly live, and we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go ahead and move this and go to my workspace. So we are going to decoupage a little mini what is this, cutting board today. I am teaching this in a class in December, and I need the sample for the class so people can kind of see what we're doing. And so I thought, well, this is a great YouTube video as well. So we're gonna go ahead and do this now. So I have my cutting board. We are gonna prime this, and we'll talk about why in a minute. I have my Mod Podge, and then I have 2 pieces of recycled decoupage paper, which I'll spread out and show you all in a minute so that we can decide which one I am going to use. And of course, all of my really good brushes are dirty. Oh, y'all, I've been it's been crazy. It's been crazy town. And so, I'm just moving from one thing to the next here. Let's see what we've got in my. Oh, this will work. Okay. I have, fortunately, a cup here with brushes. Been sitting here using them, so I actually have one clean, so that's good. I'm gonna use that. Okay, so we're gonna start with this Dixie Belle bonding boss. This is a let's say shake or stir. Well, I'll do both. How about that? How about that? I do have a little brush that I use the tip of for stirring, so we could do that too. So earlier in the year, I went through a Decopauge with Confidence course from Royce Hunt Bell, Recycled Papers, and she was working on a project, and she was priming it. She was decoupaging on wood, and I asked her, primer versus white, just white paint. And she primes because, and I mean, when you think about it from a like household paint kind of perspective, primer is designed to keep impurities in your surface from coming through. So if you're priming a wall to paint it, that is to keep any impurities in the wall, anything from the color it's already painted coming through to your new paint. So this is kind of the same in that respect. So any impurities in this wood, white paint won't prevent those from eventually showing through your decoupage paper, but primer will. So you can really use any kind of primer. I have the Dixie Belle Bonding Boss. So we're just going to take this and do a nice coat on just this front side. I don't know that I'm going to decoupage both sides of the cutting board. I might, only because this is a single, and then I can give the participants in my class a view of kind of both sheets of decoupage paper, so they might be able to easier decide which one they want, because I will give them both options. And both of these papers are on my website. I am a retailer for recycled paper, so I will put links to that in the video description. I have more papers that need to be listed too, but these are the 2 Christmas ones I have. And I think I need to go back and read my email. We're getting new stuff next week, but I think that might be, I don't think we're getting new papers. I think that's stencils, but I got to double check. So we're going to do this, and while this is drying, I will spread out my paper and try to make some decisions about which ones we're going to use. Also, I really need some sponge brushes. I have run out. I have a tendency, I don't like, for whatever reason, Mod Podge disintegrates them. I don't know if it's because of the brushes that I use. Maybe not, great quality. I apologize if you can hear a vacuum cleaner going upstairs. My timing on my YouTube lives isn't always the best in terms of what is happening in our house. And so I had some, and I had one in particular that I was like, don't use this with Mod Podge. But I did one day, forgetting, and it disintegrated, and I have forgotten to pick up more. But I think for something like this, it would go a little bit faster. I had that. Primer doesn't go on the same way that paint does, so. I did an interesting experiment on white regular acrylic paint versus chalk paint, not chocolate paint, paste, but actual folk art chalk paint in coverage. I think that was that my video last week? No, that was 2 weeks ago, I think. And that was interesting because the folk art did, excuse me, I'm opening my did cover better than the acrylic paint. So when I was painting like an MDF surface, not with white or any color in terms of being able to get it done faster, I would highly recommend chalk paint. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry. I have my drying tool, so if I need to, I can do that. I'm gonna slip this all the way over here so I can open my papers. So recycled decoupage sheets are good size with multiple elements. Now this is the Christmas flock master board. So we have a lot that you can do with this sheet. So this is, what are these, 18 by 18, I think. It's in the listing description. I'm gonna move this around. So you've got, a tree in this upper corner, bird. Moving all the way down here, you've got the poinsettia and the butterflies. And then you've got this Christmas bird and bell. You've got more birds, a little postage stamp at the top, And you've got, this is a little very faint. There's very faint patterns underneath it all throughout. So this is actually like a multi-layered design. And you've got lots of birds here. I love this. I love this little bingo card with your tag, and you know, this is vintage decor, vintage ephemera decor right there. I also really love this bell. Just beautiful. So that's one option. And of course, we would have to figure out which section of the paper we want on the cutting board. And then this is the other one. And this is just, I think this is Christmas Master Board. I'll leave it folded in half to show you. And so you've got a little bit of everything. You know, you've got some religious designs. You've got some European. This looks like a British. This reminds me of Downton Abbey, to be perfectly honest. Not necessarily what Downton Abbey looked like, but just that scene. You've got your French sort of stamp represented there. Actually, is this Christmas Master Board, or is this? It's listed on my page as Christmas Master Board. Let's just leave it at that. If I put the wrong name, I will do that. And I love it. I have to mention to Royce. So she's got Louisville, Kentucky in here in some of her stamps. What are those called? There's a word for those, brain problems, which is my hometown. So that's very exciting. So at some point I'm going to have to do something with those, even if that's not on the board today. You've got Santa, you've got the deer, and we will flip this over. And we've got some more birds up here. We've got a deer right here. We've got deer. I love this. I think that's just beautiful. And you've got more Santa down here. Got this. Reminds me a little bit of a Hummel design. You've got some more French stamps in there. We've got this right here, just really almost looks like a snow globe. And then this tree right here is lovely. And you can absolutely layer. So I could cut these individually and then layer them on top of each other. And I'm not going to do that today because this is a sample for a class. And that's a lot to teach. These are going to be folks who are really kind of new to decoupage, and I think that might overwhelm them. They might be mad at me. But once I get them comfortable and I get more comfortable, then we could absolutely do that. And that doesn't mean I won't come back and do a project. I have some of Royce's wooden tags that would look really cool with some of those stamps just like layered on top of each other. Okay, so we're gonna take my drying tool to this real quick. I think it's dry. It looks matte, and when I tilt it into the light. About that. I think I am leaning towards, let's see, if I were to do the bingo card, how much of that could I get on there? We would go a little bit up into that poinsettia. And I could move it over a little bit so I would get a little more of the tree if I wanted it. Yeah, okay, so I think we're going to do this because I think it's really cute. I don't know, do I want the spell? This is the hard part. Let's see. Now, see, if I were going to do this bell, I would really want the bell right there, which would mean, again, a layering option. So I think we're going to go with the bingo card because I think that's super cute. And we're going to get my scissors and we're going to cut this down. Not perfect. We're not going to line it up. Oh, I forgot something that I'm going to have to go grab. I'm going to need my gator sander. I knew I was forgetting something. I don't want it perfectly aligned because we need excess. But I want to maximize how much of this sheet I get to keep. And as you're decoupaging, as you're cutting, keep not teeny tiny pieces, but if you have reasonably sized scraps of decoupage paper, keep those. Because you can make very cool kind of collage designs. You can use them to edge something. So like, again, with this bell, if I had pieces of excess paper, you know, I could put that down first and put the bell on top of it. So you've got all kinds of options with your scraps. So make sure you keep those. Okay. I just want to see where I need to cut here. Okay. I'm going to cut here. I can't see that. I'm going to cut right here above that poinsettia, even though I'm going to end up losing some of that, just to make sure that I have enough. Okay. I'm going to do that. All right, so now we have our paper cut down. We have our cutting board primed. And I'm just going to kind of multiple times kind of visualize where I want this to go. Now we are going to use Mod Podge. There's a whole thing about what kind of decoupage medium you use depending on what you're using for your decoupage paper. So whether you're using true decoupage paper or rice paper or tissue napkins or wrapping paper, as well as the surface, and all of that gets into different kinds of medium that you can use. I just grabbed my Mod Podge. It's, you know, the most accessible. It's probably what I will use in my class, at least initially, since again, these folks are going to be pretty new to decoupage, and I don't want to like stress them out or confuse them by talking about, you know, different kinds of medium. We'll get into that when I do subsequent classes. But what we are going to do in my class, which I know is going to like blow people's minds, is we are going to use the misting method. And so I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to work. Actually, no, I'm going to go sideways because that way I know that will keep this in the frame better. But I am going to work from left to right because this gives me more to work with at the beginning. So we are going to add my decoupage or my Mod Podge. Just a little bit. I'm only going to go up. I'm going to use actually my self-healing mat here as a guide. And we're going to use a decent amount because when you mist your paper, it reacts to the medium differently than when you use dry. And we are misting our paper to let the fibers in the paper relax and spread and give us a good wrinkle-free finish. So I'm going to mist just a little bit at the bottom here. I'm going to give it a second. Let that paper kind of relax. And then I'm going to line it up on my board here and spread it out. Now this is tissue paper. It's heavier, but it is still tissue paper. So you want to, if you need to manipulate it, if you need to try and move it, if you put something down and it's not quite where you wanted it, you can still do that. But you do still want to do that carefully. All right, so there's that. So I'm going to go up to about here this time. Woo, hi. And we're going to work this way. We're going to work towards the fold. Here. Again, being kind of generous with the Mod Podge. We'll do this in sections, and so now I'm going up to the one thing about this that is difficult is I can't hold the paper and the surface and the paintbrush all at the same time. You know, crafters need an extra set of hands, so this board is moving around on me a little bit, which is fine. So then we're going to mist my next section of paper. Again, you're going to let it sit for a second. Give it a second to react to that water. Let those fibers relax. And then you can use a brush to go over it when you drop it down. A little bit of a wrinkle there. Let's see if I can. Now I'm still new to this. So I do, you know, still get wrinkles even when I do it this way. However, I get less wrinkles when I do it this way. And that wrinkle that I kind of started to get right in here is going away as I just sort of push this down on the board. Move this a little bit. The paper's sticking. Raise this down a little. Smooth out these little wrinkles here, so I'm just going to try and smooth them out with my brush. And, you know, when we're done here and we sand off the edges of the paper, we can go back underneath the corners if, we didn't get enough in the corners or anything like that, which happens. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way up to the top of the cutting board here. And we're just going to work our way across until we meet up to the fold of the paper. Make sure I'm nesting high enough there. Let that sit for 1 second. Now this is where I probably need to turn this around, but we're not going to right now. Okay, so I'm going to use my brush. Put this down a little bit of a wrinkle right there. Let's see if I can use my finger to guide it out without tearing the paper. So, I don't know if you can, you might be able to see, got a little bit of a wrinkle right there. My Mod Podge is kind of sticking to, now the Mod Podge will dry clear. So once the Mod Podge dries, you won't be able to see that. Might be misting a little bit too much. That takes some practice. I think the last time I tried to do this, I didn't mist it enough. And so now I'm overcompensating. Okay, now we're going to do the handle. I'm going to come back down to our fold. Actually, a little bit more. Make sure there's enough to respond. So when you do this dry, your paper really absorbs that Mod Podge because it's dry. When you're misting your paper first, how it reacts to the Mod Podge is very different. A second. So you need a little bit more of your medium. Over this. Smooth that with my finger. That went down really well without any wrinkles. We had a little bit of this wrinkle kind of come up into there, but the rest of this went down really well. Okay. Put the lid on this, but we're going to leave the brush out because we might need this here in a second in case there were any corners that I missed. So I am going to grab my gator sander because I forgot to get that out. So I want to let this dry a little bit before we start to sand off our paper. And we want 220. I don't. And I don't even remember which one is the. So when you're doing this, you want a very fine grit. 220 is good. Really probably the best. I don't have 220. So we are going to, and I don't think my sanding block is a 220. I need to look up and see what my sanding block is. So we're going to use my 180, and we're just going to do it very carefully. And we're going to write down that I need sponge brushes and I need 220 grit. Because this is what happens. Is like I realize when I'm live that I need stuff and I don't write it down. And so then I never get it. So while that is sitting there for a second, I'm going to pull out my ribbon. And kind of see, I have a whole bunch of new ribbon too. What did I do? And I have Michael's budget paint. There should be a whole bag. Probably still in my car. Oh wait. Oh, that's not it there. There should be my bag. Because like I needed more ribbon, but last week I ended up buying more ribbon. And so you have a couple of options for this when it's finished. You can just run a thick twine or ribbon through your hole in the top of the cutting board so you can hang it, or you can tie ribbon around the handle, which is sort of where my brain was going with this, especially because the bingo card covers and then you've got, you can see the white of the primer, which is fine, but to be able to sort of offset that a little bit with some ribbon, I think would be good. That one might be cute. And then I've got just grabbed a bunch of different florals that you could, kind of put at the top there too, along with your ribbon. So we'll see what that looks like when we're finished here. Okay, so I'm going to pick this up very carefully. My paper is stuck to it. Okay, so I'm going to slide this over to me. There we go. And we're going to take my drying tool and I'm going to dry it just a smidge. What I don't want is for that paper to still be so wet that when I sand it off, I actually tear the paper that is on my board. I don't know how long that's been on there. So we're gonna. The paper, Pam, the paper is recycled Decopauge paper. You can actually get it on my website. I will put a link in the description once I'm done live, but you go to girlfridaycrafts.com and go to my store. There's a section at the bottom for recycled decoupage papers. This one that I am using is the Christmas Masterboard. And then there was another one. No, this is Christmas Flock. This is Christmas Flock. I'm sorry. There's two Christmas ones there. Christmas Masterboard and Christmas Flock. This is the Christmas Flock. So I did have a little bit of that wrinkle, which I am very new to decoupage, so I am absolutely not going to be unhappy about that. Now, one of my favorite ways to actually remove excess paper when you decoupage is to burn it off. I love the look that it gives. But I don't do that sitting here. I always take that upstairs and do it in the bathroom or in the kitchen over the sink. So sometime I'll maybe just do a little short or something like that, showing that when I can set up my little phone mount upstairs. But I love the burnt look that it gives you, which you can get just by adding some distressing to this. We're going to trim this just a little bit here, make this a little bit easier. If I add some Tim Holtz distressing to this, once it completely dries in like the vintage photo or walnut stain, it's going to give that same kind of effect, but the burning does look really cool. Okay, so I don't think that paper is completely dry, so we're going to go this way. And this is, me being just a tad bit impatient. And, not wanting to let it dry all the way before I get it finished. And so, I think my paper was still a little wet here. A little wetter than it, should have been if I let it dry a little bit more. So I will take my distress ink and go around the edges of this. I'm going to go nice and slow so that I don't tear anything. And then we're going to trim this out around the top just a little bit to make it a little easier to cut or to sand. And I'm going to keep these pieces. When I was talking about keeping your excess pieces, like these are good size and could be usable in another project, put them in a junk journal, do a collage. So this curve is interesting to try and sand. Cut some of that excess off. This is the one downside to doing something like this live, because I can't just fast forward through all this. And I will probably keep a little bit of that. And just put it in a bag in and of itself. I have these little poly zipper envelopes from Amazon that I like to keep paper scraps in. And then this is a lot of usable for a collage or something like that, or for edging. So we will keep all of this as well, because this will dry. Just set it here on my desk overnight and let it dry out, and then I can put it in my envelope. Okay, so there's the board. Now for this, I have a you can use whatever you want, but where is my, what did I use for that? Hold on, it's in my, no, this isn't the one I was looking for, but it'll do. So I'm gonna take a pair of tweezers. And poke the hole. That'll remove some of the excess, and then I just take a little paintbrush and I'll dip it into my Mod Podge and just go inside that circle, and that'll adhere down that excess there. I'll do that last. So I think the rest of this is just, my corners seem good, actually. I was a little concerned that on one of the corners, especially this corner down here, I was going to have some lift, but I don't. So we're going to go ahead and put my paintbrush in the water. And then at this point, it's now just about decorating, right? And deciding kind of what I want to do here. I definitely want to use this. I love this, and I'm almost out of it, and I can't remember where I got it. So I'm going to have to go, the next time I go to Michael's, I'm going to have to specifically look to see if they have any more of that. I like it down like that better. I don't want to cover it too much because I want it to be really clear that that's a bingo card. But the easiest place to do that and then put some ribbon on top of it is going to be right here in the thanks Pam, right here in the neck. And then we've got, get my tin snips out, because I think this definitely warrants some greenery, but I would like a couple pieces, or at least one piece with the pine cone on it. Cut that very carefully. All fun and games till somebody gets hurt. So that like that. And then maybe another piece. I have another piece of the greenery that does not have a pine cone on it. Put it there on the other side. Oh, I think that's cute. I think that's cute. Okay, so we're going to get my glue gun going here. I'm going to glue these down, and then we will tie some ribbon on top of it so that you can't really see the glue. Oh, we're doing good on time. Okay. I have something at noon, so I knew I was going to have to be mindful of my time here. Oh, okay, so we're going to do that and let that heat up. And then think about my ribbon. I like that because we could wrap that around a couple of times to cover. And we could also combine it with some other stuff. I feel like I need something other than red, though. There's a lot of red in this. I got that too. That might be cute. Actually, I think that would be really cute. Okay. And then you could still thread some twine through here. Oh, actually, you know what? Before I do that, where is my, it's upstairs. Of course it is. Of course it is. Let's see. Why no, is it upstairs? I didn't use it last. Okay, you know what? That's fine. I'll just use red. So I wanted to I wanted to do some distressing on the edges of this to offset some of that stuff. Places where the paper kind of tore on me a little bit. And I do have some, some Mod Podge or some primer on the edges here. So that doesn't bother me. If that would bother you, you can always use painter's tape on these edges here before you put any primer or even your Mod Podge or anything on there so that you don't get that. So we're just going to take this is Tim Holtz, this is Lumberjack Plaid. Now I was going to do this in like a walnut stain or vintage photo or something like that to give it that sort of burnt look like I was talking about. But those inks are upstairs because I had them last night at class. And I forgot. So we're just going to use this because we improvise and we do what we have on hand. Use what we have on hand. And actually this red's really cute. So this will work just fine. Just go around the edges here. Ink covers a multitude of sins. Covers white in your paper crafting where maybe your fussy cutting wasn't great. Covers this where maybe your sanding scuffed your paper. I'm going to go ahead real quick too and take a small paintbrush and my Mod Podge, and we're just going to go over Decopauge paper that's on the inside of this. Right here, just put a little bit on there and kind of push that paper down. It'll adhere it. Now I've got a little bit of paper sticking out to the back here, so we'll deal with that later. So then that's nice and secured. Easy peasy. Okay, now we are going to get back to my glue. glue gun's heating up. And I think I'm going to put the greenery pieces down first. But what we're going to try to do is do it in such a way that everything is glued to the board itself, as opposed to, well, maybe I should do that first, as opposed to gluing the greenery pieces on top of each other, because I find that sometimes doesn't work. Some hot glue. Of course, this is the almost guaranteed you're going to burn yourself. None of us have fingerprints left after years of using hot glue. Now, I probably didn't let that heat up enough. I can already tell by how not hot it is. We'll see. Hopefully that will great. Yeah, it seems to be staying down there. Okay. I always forget. Somebody taught me, and it does work. If you take a little bit of Vaseline and run it around the metal edge, the metal tip of your glue gun before you start to heat it up, it helps prevent the like what you call it, the threads, the strings. But you really want to do that before you turn it on. Otherwise, you end up burning yourself. I have done it as I've remembered. This time I knew I had waited too long. But the thing that's cute about this too is right down here. So I have some of the Essential Stencil does like little 1-inch word stencils. And they come in packs of like 20. And so I could go through that and look at what holiday words I have, and I could stencil something here. Or if you have an IOD or any kind of mold, you could create something out of resin or polymer clay that you could attach to this. You could handwrite something on this to kind of use up that tag and add a little something else to it. Oh, I should have got my sand here. I really need to clean my mat. I need to get a new one. She's gotten very beaten up over the years. Right there. Now, this would also be, I'm not going to keep you all on here live while I go digging for it. But your big, like Christmas wrapping ribbon would work really well with this because it would pretty much cover all of this. This thinner ribbon, I'm going to have to like probably layer a little bit to get it to cover. And of course you could just do an actual bow, a messy bow or a real bow, and stick on top of it. I'm going to try to, I'm almost out of this. No, this is my favorite. One of my favorites. So I cut quite a bit of this. I'm just curious to see how how this works at covering. And if I can't get this to look quite the way I want it to look, then I'll go dig in my wrapping paper stash and see what I've got that's bigger that would fit. Oh, that might actually work. Might have to tie that in a knot. Twice and then make my little bow. I always worry about satin ribbon. Is that going to hold? Okay, a little crooked there. And I can glue this, as I get it staged how I want. I can glue it in place at each point, but I think that will actually cover those, and that might actually work. I feel like it might need something there. I have builds. Oh, let's see. I have builds. I could string a bell onto that. Oh, I think that's going to work. Okay. All right. So that is pretty close to being finished. Yeah, so turn that off for a second. I'm going to go look in my wrapping paper ribbon and see what else I have just to be sure. If you are following me on Facebook or Instagram, I will post a picture of the finished project later today, and then I will get the video description here updated with links, so recycled links and where I got the cutting board and the Tim Holtz inks that I used and that sort of thing. So let me know in the comments what you think about this project. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will be back next week with something different. Y'all have a good Friday. I'll talk to you later. Bye.